Yeah.
All right.
Hold on, let me just stop that. It's not driving me crazy. Some type of shirt. All right. I'm set now.
So,
All right. Yeah.
so, disclaimer.
Yep. So, as you all know, we're here for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. We will just be speaking on the background of legal and law nomenclature. If, for instance, you are in legal peril and you seek attorney or assistance, please do um, get in contact with an attorney and be so advised. This is just for educational purposes. We will just be reading forth from the actual U.S. Constitution and law books. There will be sometimes citations of statutes, but however, as previously stated, we're just getting into the background on facts and information. Please do not cite this as legal background for your personal cases unless you're willing to do that background information. Once again, this is for education and entertainment purposes only.
Yeah, you
All right.
made sure to talk about that.
Yeah.
Put a lot of
I want to make
emphasis.
sure no one tries to. I mean, I want you to do your own due diligence. Don't try to piggyback on what we're talking about and say, "Oh, you guys didn't know what they were saying." I mean, that's on you. You gotta make sure you do your own background. All right, but as always, let's bust into the Hale versus Hinkle so that you can understand where this information emanates from. All right, so I'll break into that right now. Hale versus Hinkle, U.S. 43. That'll be 1906. Hale versus Hinkle was decided by the United States Supreme Court in 1906. The opinion of the court states the individual may stand upon his constitutional rights as a citizen. He is entitled to carry on his private business in his own way. His power to contract is unlimited. He owes no duty to the state or to his neighbor to divulge his business or to open his doors to an investigation, so far as it may tend to incriminate him. He owes no duty to the state, since he receives nothing therefrom. He receives nothing therefrom, beyond the protection of his life and property. His rights are such as existed by the law of the land, common law, long antecedent to the organization of the state, and can only be taken from him by due process of law and in accordance with the Constitution. He owes nothing to the public so long as he does not trespass upon their rights. So, just to give you background on how strongly your rights are backed by the law of the land, i.e., common law. The government cannot interfere with your ability to lawfully travel the land and be exist in general. Can't be done. Your rights are so far protected that the Constitution itself is not a granting of rights, but more so an acknowledgement of an agreement of the I'm trying to use the word, when a contract between you and God, as the fact that you exist here in your human form.
Like you
So,
said, a previous cast, this land is your land, this land is my land, this land is our land.
yep, made for you and me.
Nowhere in the does it say in that song or any kind of actually uh, anthem for the United States is government ever mentioned.
And I love that because it's actually shown that government is oh man, we talked about that document the last time where it literally states that I mean, I guess that's really the Maryland State Declaration of Rights, any state's Declaration of Rights.
Yeah.
It's in the
Constitution of
preamble to
Maryland
like all yeah,
rights.
there you go.
Yeah. No
That,
land, no laws can be made that existed before. No laws are made that existed before man and woman. So anything that comes from a court or any kind of government agency is only done so by the power of man and woman. So if men and women decide that they no longer want those, no longer agree to those things, well, that is their right since they created it in the first place.
yeah. All government emanates from the idea that man condones its actions. If that's not the case, then the government is actually the principal at fault and must subjugate itself to the will of man. Let's go there.
Yes, they are always the subordinate. They are never the master. They're always in the position of, as they say, public servitude. They are never the ones who are in charge of the people. I would say they are servants of the people. So you can't really be a servant and think you're in charge. It's kind of contradictory. But that's that's that. We already talked about that.
We've covered that quite extensively.
So, we're going to get into today is a lot of things we talk about and go over are things that you should say or things that you should know, or the law agrees that you should be aware of. Today we are going to actually go over things that you should not say, that are not in your best interest to mention. There is a saying in law that if you don't want something discussed, don't bring it up in court. Don't bring it up if you don't want to discuss, because as soon as you open your mouth about it, it can be now it can be brought into the record and be talked about extensively. So don't say things you don't want discussed in court.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been seeing a lot of this Kwame Brown stuff, and he keeps mentioning this phrase, and I like it because it kind of speaks to what we're discussing here. It's like, don't step into the quicksand. The quicksand in this reference here is the idea that you're going to start talking legal nomenclature without understanding of what it is you are bringing onto yourself. And it goes back to a natural law principle that I'm just currently really supportive of this idea. And here's the maxim: do not seek controversy.
Mm-hmm.
And the easiest way to not seek controversy is to not bring on items into the open court that you do not want expounded upon. That's really all you have to do, because anything stated for the record in court is what they have for reference. And if you don't put it into the docket, it's not there. It does not exist until you bring it to the docket.
Yes. Don't be your own worst enemy.
There you go. So we're going to help you avoid being your own worst enemy. We got some nomenclature for you. So
Go ahead. You can go first.
all right, there's several applications here. I'm gonna say the first thing you don't want to be. And it's funny because even though we just discussed Hale versus Hinkle, where it says your rights are unlimited as a citizen, if you don't know how to conduct yourself as such in court, I would often just opt for you to not bring up the idea of citizenship if you don't understand how to defend yourself from that position. Always, as I said in the previous cast, I only claim myself to be three things whenever I'm in front of an audience in a court. I'll be a soul, I'll be a man, and I would also classify myself as human. I would not classify myself as person because that gets sticky. That gets very that gets dense and thick because then you get into the idea that entities are allowed to claim personhood inside of a courtroom, and you've now made your classification nebulous and up for debate. I would never. I would classify myself as a member of the classification of people. That's the other one. All right, you want to ping pong that?
Yeah. Don't claim to be something you're not. That is really what it boils down to. Can you be a name? I don't know how I can be an animate object, but or something of just it has to be said. It's just a vibration. I don't know how I can just be a vibration wave go through the air. But I mean, if you want to agree to be that, go ahead. I really only go by one, and that's a man. I'm a man. If you think I'm something else, well then I'd like you to prove it. That's really what it boils down to. If I say I'm a man and you say I'm such and such, well, prove it. I'm John Doe. If I say I'm a man, and you say I'm John Doe, well, prove it. That's what the courtroom's for. Prove it. Because then you get sticky. Because then you have to prove that I am John Doe. Well, how do you go about doing that? There is no way.
Yeah, I was gonna say good question.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, there's no jurisdiction that can really tamp me down to being two words. And what I often like to go into is it was a cast we did maybe about 4 weeks ago where we had you remember there was a blue area and a yellow area and it was in half and we described law versus legal items.
Yes, and law and legal are not the same.
And when you put yourself into that world, you actually are basically issuing the edict that you exist in a two-dimensional world on paper, because the name is something that's written on paper. And once that's done, now you get into becoming those dockets and statutes that they've labeled that exist in only a maritime environment. And so, yeah, I would avoid defining myself down to things that they put on paper because that is a total game changer, literally. So you should not understand yourself to be such that you can be confined to two words that exist on paper.
Yeah.
I mean, super technical. You're the holder in due course for the account in question.
Yeah, we all know. Well, I won't say we all know about, the Social Security card is your account number. This literally is your account number because they didn't have Social Security cards before. before the fall of the nation, they didn't have Social Security cards where numbers were on them. They would just certify that you were born. Now they are numbered because how much you make, your taxes you'll pay throughout the state, throughout your lifetime, all that good stuff is factored in. Parents and all that. But
Yeah.
nah, yeah, you're stock now. You're as we say, free range livestock.
The crazy part about all that is, as some know who have done due diligence and done the homework, you understand that literally the U.S. dollar is backed by your compliance to the idea that the faith of your ability to continue to produce for the nation creates the taxation, creates the valuation of currency in this nation. The lifeblood of this nation is your ignorance to the idea that you actually fuel it with your consent to a contract. You're not 99% of the people walking the United States do not even understand that they're capitulating to.
The thing that gives it tangibility is your energy.
Exactly.
But those are higher learned processes of coherence and comprehension that are escape a lot of people. So until you get to the understanding phase, so you can actually reach the comprehension phase, none of what this means, or none of what is said here really actually means anything to you. Because if you don't choose to actually understand that a sentence is made up of multiple words and all those words have definitions, then you are just reading the words and have no comprehension of what they mean and what it says. It's sunny outside today. I said a bunch of words. Now, if you don't have any context to what sunny outside today mean, you have no understanding of what that sentence is. You read it. That's it. That's good on you. You can read.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and in what you're detailing right there, it lies the fact that you actually need to have complete comprehension of every single word within the phrase. Because if you let one word exist without your deep, comprehensive understanding, then you've laid yourself open to, like, what was the maxim I just gave you? Don't seek controversy. You've tossed something into the air that can be debated because you weren't sure of what it meant when it was uttered from you.
Like the word "and."
A very important word when reading documents created or drafted by the let's call it the state.
Words in law do not go in Webster's.
Nope.
You've never seen it in Webster's, not one day. You think
Once
you
again,
have.
Webster's is the compilation of standard diction that has been decided between common people, like has no further strength in your life. There's no strength behind those words. If we're putting it into the realm of currency, the words of Webster they're fiat. They have no base valuation. They can be used. You can use them frivolously.
The only place they matter is where you're located. Because if you go to South Africa, if you go to let's say Tanzania or Botswana, they're not going to know what you're talking about. They're not really going to care. But you're going to think your words mean something, which they don't. Because they are not universal. They are not anywhere besides where you're at right at that moment. So unless you come to a realization that common speech is not the same thing as law, legal wording, legalese, words that are used throughout the whole entire globe, then, I mean, I really have nothing. I really can't tell you much else.
Yeah. And the weird thing about legalese, I mean, because think about it, what are we constantly harping on? UCC, which is what, a uniform commercial code. And when you say uniform, it's funny. You should, that concept. Like, oh, do you think if you go
Uniform
you
business.
learn the UCC for America, suddenly if you go to Britain, that those terms don't apply? Well, it's uniform. It's commercial. Commercial is maritime law. When you understand what maritime is, you understand it to be the law of the sea. So it's what exists between all nations that do, well, commerce. So these are traditional understandings that go along all oceanic lines when people are in agreements about trade and commerce. When it comes to money being at the forefront of what is being negotiated.
Let's break it down to the basics. You can't say something is a uniform commercial code and still assume that is a law, because those law never was in any of those three words said. Uniform commercial code. Never was the word law mentioned. So if you ever believe that that is law, then you obviously don't know what words mean.
And it's funny because I'll oftentimes cite governmental entities for a thing I like to call obfuscation, which just means hiding the truth if you really want to get into it, or being deceptive in their way of conveying information. But in that, well, so that's a typical example. I mean, you could call it that, but like Google just said there, the term law does not enter itself onto any of that terminology used by the state, and that's no accident, as you'll find with just about everything they ever put out. The terminology is very purposeful. They avoided the term law because they don't intend for it to apply onto what it is they're going to do with this information or those conditions.
They say exactly what they're supposed to say for what they're trying to get done. The issue is the assumption that they mean something else, even though these documents that they write are fine-tooth combed through to make sure the wording is exactly the way it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
But you assume they made a mistake and just said it wrong.
So, I want to do like a quick delving into a topic that's really at the heart of a lot of these things that we're discussing here. And I'm actually curious because, I mean, I know Google here sees me on socials putting forth information, and I've actually low-key decided that I'm going to hit on some things in principle. I don't know, like, honestly, I've sort of been summoned by some, like, a person they've been called forth, and they kind of requested that I continue to have a certain purposefulness and direction in what it is that I say to people. And honestly, I felt kind of crazy because when I was called forth to do it, there was something in me that, like, I questioned. I said, man, like, do I want to do that? Can I do that? And the more it kind of like vibrated within me, I was like, yo, I'm kind of well, yeah, I guess I use the word compelled. There's a need for what it is that I'm providing, and I happen to be the person who can do it. So for me to deny this call to action is almost in a way me denying myself and denying what it is I should be providing for people. So if you keep seeing me share this item, I wish I could make this visible to you. I don't really have a way, but as you can see, there's a graphic there. And I'm going to read you the language that's stated in the graphic real quick so people can understand what it is that they actually participate in. And what you'll understand from this is, America itself is oftentimes labeled and described as a Christian nation. And if anyone's ever seen the Netflix movie, what's it called? Google, the joint you put me
Which
onto.
one?
The
Which
one
one?
about the organization that uses religion as a front.
Oh, The Family.
The Family. Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
They don't like being called that.
Yeah, they have a different name for themselves.
Yeah.
But it's basically the idea that religious doctrine pervades it rules their position in these state organizations. And what I want people to understand is most of the people who claim to be like religious and conservative, what they actually are, they're statist. And statism, let me read you the definition of statism via a person that I completely agree with, and when you understand it, you will as well. Statism: the brilliant idea that we give a small group of people the right to kidnap, imprison, harass, steal from, and kill people, so that we can be protected from people who kidnap, harass, steal, and kill people. That is a statist. And when you really, really understand that, you'll end up understanding the Israel-Palestine conflict. You'll understand the way the government has tried to insert themselves in a position of authorship. I really want these words to resonate with you. You begin to understand where these servants have cast themselves into a position of authority. And so I would like to expound about it a little bit because it really digs into all these terminologies we've been sprinkling onto y'all.
Have at it, for lack of a better phrase, you can catch me on my Omni-Man right now, so have at it. But the word, if you're ever going to say something, you want it to mean something, right? No one talks. Well, no one should talk. I'll put it that way. No one should talk just to hear themselves talk. But people like to people, so they'll do things just to make themselves seem more important than what they really are. Because in the grand scheme of things, you are no more important than the bum on the street in the corner. So, if you're going to speak to mean something, to say something, to give life to something, to produce life into another body, because you're giving away your energy. You literally have to take energy to say words, right? And you are presenting your energy and giving off your life force. And when you do it for the sake of nothing, you are not going to get anything in return. There's no conduit. There is no as what's the ark. There's no ark of covenant. There is no there's no electrical carrying back and forth. There's no conductivity. Exactly. So now you just wasted all your energy. You just let your energy go, and you only have so much energy, because people are energy. We're life force. We're beings. The only thing that controls you is electrical impulses throughout your body. You're a giant computer, but you don't know any better because you think you're more important than a computer.
You'd have to get into string theory and get to the understanding.
How you already know how I feel. Yeah. Remember,
we don't.
Side note. Just so you can actually. Okay, this is my way of getting a basic how you can get a basic understanding of string theory. The nervous system is string theory. If you understand how the nervous system works, then you can get a basic understanding of string theory. But that would take you actually taking time out to understand it, and no one can make you. So we can lead the horse to water, but can't make them drink. But make your words worth something. So when you use words, that's why we say we always told you the words you can use, the words you don't use. Like vehicle. If you don't know what the word vehicle means, motor vehicle administration. Remember, it says motor vehicle administration. It doesn't say automobile administration. It doesn't say conveyance administration. It doesn't say car administration. It specifically says. Now, mind you, like we said earlier, they didn't mess up what they wanted to say. They know exactly what they wanted to say. You assume they don't know what they're talking about. The whole government agency that was built on something obviously doesn't know what they're talking about. Side note. But motor vehicle administration.
Man, you know what though? I'm gonna just say this real quick. I wish people assumed, at least met you at a baseline of what you just said, of assuming that they don't know what they're talking about. They're worse than that. They go into it and they don't even know what they're talking about. And that like baseline assumption might lead them to information. They're not even there with it, because then you'd have to ask questions.
You're talking about employees. I'm not talking about employees. Employees are the low level. It's just like any other pyramid scheme. The worker bees don't know anything about the queen. All they know is to do their job and shut up. Yeah, because they're gonna work until they die. That's what workers bee do. That's what Americans do. They work till they die. Worker bees don't know anything about what the queen does. When they use the word vehicle, they know exactly how it is legally defined in law and by the Supreme Court. How they actually have defined it themselves is in the books if you want to look it up. They have literally told you a motor vehicle is one that is used for business purposes only. It has to be used for business. If it's not used for business, it's not a motor vehicle. You assume that means something different because you think they don't know what they're talking about. If you use a motor vehicle in any court of law, they will get you for motor vehicle.
Yeah. And it's funny because you just mentioned it's just so interesting to me because you had just mentioned the phrase or term and its strength in the world of the courtroom. And motor vehicle is like literally hinged upon the word and, because it describes every description of what it is that you would call a car or an automobile. You would call it that if you really understood, but you'll allow them to convince you that that thing is a motor vehicle because you don't understand the power of the term and. Because it's like, it's every ordinary description of an object propelled by the force of an engine, through, you want to go there, like, just,
It's just mechanical. It says by mechanical force.
Yeah, but then they'll use the word and the and will then lead into the idea that you're propelling it for the purpose of profit in the commission of moving about people and property for profit. And you don't understand that a motor vehicle is such. So they'll describe it to you and tell you that you're occupying the space or you're occupying that territory in your automobile. And you'll agree with them because you don't know any better. Because you let them use the word vehicle as though that's what
continue to let them use the word vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. The continuing to allow someone to use incorrect wording. I don't know for what purpose and how it helps you, but to continue to allow someone to use incorrect wording just because they want to doesn't allow for conversation. Because there's no meeting of the minds. You cannot have a contractual agreement simply because you're not even talking the same words. You're not even speaking the same. You're literally speaking Japanese, and they're speaking English. You can't. The two are not. You're not understanding anything. Because all I understand is Japanese, and all you understand is English. And you're telling me what you're saying in English has to do something with what I'm saying in Japanese, but I don't know that because I can't understand you.
That cannot be. Yes, for the one versed in Japanese, the man speaking to him in English speaks nothing but I use the word nonsense because, like, let's just say a Japanese person was teleported to America with, like, just like that, and there was no further elucidation into where his environment was or what happened or how it came to be. And let's say this Japanese man had never encountered the English language. He only spoke the language of his homeland. Imagine trying to tell that man that he's propelling a vehicle. Nani? I mean, what are you going to say? Like, I literally do not understand.
You're like, oh, konnichiwa. Domo arigato. Nani?
Dosu yorosu. Like, what are you? I only can speak Japanese to you. If we cannot convey our separate points at an equal point of language, anything you do onto me, and see, this is when we get into these people who are statists. I keep dropping this. I know Google saw me state this underneath something he had uttered to another person to help them understand law in a deeper depth of understanding based on the conversation they were having. And that's the idea that violence emanates from the term violation. In order to conduct violence onto another, now imagine what it would be to literally start clubbing a man because you're yelling commands at them in a foreign language, and as the Japanese man continues to say, "Nani," which means what? You just start beating him because he's been teleported onto your land and he's speaking a foreign language, and you just start beating him because he can't just start producing English at you. The moment you start, get down, freeze, comply, use any of your statist, slave worshiping, dictates and edicts that you enjoy so casually. Once you start to bear that upon a person who is totally outside of your realm of understanding, you are a violator. You're commissioning violence onto a man, and he has every right to use force to stop you because you're not able to process the language in which he speaks to you to convey his right to be.
You're mad at him for existing because he doesn't talk your language.
There you have it. Succinct.
I'm not going to sugarcoat. Using the word, anytime you talk and you don't know what the word means, you can say a whole entire sentence. If you only understand half of it, you didn't understand the sentence. You even said yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You were just repeating what you heard one time.
And in doing so, you pretty much opened up one of these other items that comes from another place, but you'll understand. You've opened up Pandora's box. You've laid landmines in your own language to create avenues towards your own enslavement because you do not understand how to liberate yourself through language you cannot readily identify and express. It's like I would look really crazy trying to cut my lawn with a katana. Like, yes, it serves the purpose of cutting, but clearly I am not cognizant of the way in which it is meant to cut. What a flagrant misuse of an item.
That is flagrant. Let's go on some more words that you
let's
don't
use a couple more phrases.
Another word you don't use in court. I don't know. What do you?
Here, I got one. I mean, it just ties back. We'll jump into another because this is just one super quick. Because if you understood anything of the previous 10 minutes of what we just went into, this one will obviously make sense to you. I wouldn't use the word person in court. Because we just talk about what people are and how to identify yourself. I'm just giving you a gimme. Identify underneath the proper capacity of what you do and how you exist in the world, or be subject to, what the courtroom will tell you the means of your existence is. Just back to that phrase, but we can do some more.
I got the one we discussed yesterday that I'm going to use today, and when we discuss it, you will understand further, or at least I hope you do. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. There is no point at any time in any court that you should ever come across and have it utter out your lips the word yes.
Yep. That's signing, sealed, delivered. That's signing contracts. That's a stamp.
Anytime you say yes, that means everything that was said to you, you agree with.
You, the force of law, because you accepted.
It doesn't matter when you say it either, because as long as you say yes, they're gonna be like, oh, so that means you went through, because the way contract law and admiralty law courts, as far as America is concerned, they all work off the assumption that you are there to do business.
Oh man, you just dug into one thing I wanted to mention at some point, which is the concept of the false presumption of law. And yes, it's the easiest way to walk yourself into that.
Yeah, because you assume you're there for a common law, because that's the law of man, but you are there for admiralty law. It's two different courts. You saying yes to anything literally says, I agree with anything that's happening at this point and anything forward.
Ooh.
So if you come into any courtroom, if you go into any courtroom and say yes, like, are you John Doe? Yes. Your court case is over, because they've already can now go through with anything they want to after that. Did you hear them? Did you hear the because they like to use the word officer. They're actually law enforcement agent, or cop. Officers are elected. Officers are elected. Yeah, if you're not elected, you're not an officer. But that's
an agent of the state.
If you say yes, that means everything from here on in, you agree to what was done. So saying yes at any point in time means you agree to whatever is done. Do you understand my commands? Yes. So I do from this point forward, I can do to you because you agreed to it.
Facts.
That's it.
Facts. Okay. And here I want to use not a big, let's call it a mildly big word to describe that simple 3-letter word that Google just wrote there, or stated, which was yes. The term yes is a form of endorsement. What people don't understand, they are often doing in their regular interactions with the state. You're often endorsing, which means you're like, we just talked about language, contracts, and I gave you power. Giving power. Yes is an endorsement. You're giving power to the entity that is working, I mean, if you want to be quite honest about it, for your enslavement. That's the ends of their means. Their means to the end. The end is your enslavement. The means
14th Amendment.
Yes. To relegate you to a capacity.
It literally says it in the 14th Amendment. That's what it is.
Yeah, subject to. Yes. You're endorsing their actions. You've literally, funny, if you use the term understanding, you've chosen now to stand underneath this force, which is the government, which if you want to be honest about it, I think here's where people usually get themselves messed up. Now, I describe the government in certain fashions and capacities because I've done the legwork and research to understand what it is they're attempting to do. But in its most pure form, government is neither positive nor negative. It's a baseline. It's actually was neutral. It's a neutral term because government is meant to be expressed through the people's understanding of where the government stands under. So when you understand the government, you've moved yourself as a position of a member of the group class people to under the government, and you've become a statist. At this place, you're into slavery to the government, but that was always within your control.
Are you a citizen?
Don't you dare say yes.
We've read off the definition of citizen many times over. A subject of a government property. There's two basic ones.
Ward of the state, if you want a third.
Yes, or slave, if you want to get all in there,
all the way there.
If you want, yeah. But so as the people who created the government, if someone asks you, "Are you a subject of the government?" Well, that would mean you are not the creator of the government.
There we are.
You are actually working for the government. That literally means you're a subject. You are working for it. You are beholden to your king.
You've given up your authorship over, and you've become subject to.
We can break it down even further. So you can only either serve God or you serve the government. Which one do you serve?
See, and that's why I keep referring.
You're a subject to God. You're a God subject, or you're either the government subject. Which one are you? I'm not even sugarcoating no more.
I mean, who is the one true God?
You can decide whether you're going to be godly or you're going to be a government agent. It's your choice.
Yeah.
That's what the basic level is. If you want to get to the basic level and to really a true understanding, who do you serve? Who's your master?
Are you ascendant or are you slave-minded? As above, so below. The line exists in the middle. It's for you to declare where you stand over or stand under. Overstand, understand.
They didn't create a overstand word for a reason. Is there any other terms you would like to go over?
Oh, okay. Let's keep talking. So we've done citizen, we've done vehicle. If I'm talking,
yes.
And we did
done yes.
I mean, it's funny because we did the maxim talking about the simplest words are the strongest. I mean, so of course no applies just the same. It makes me want to think of the word I as well, but we've continually gone over the many forms of understanding what you classify yourself as. If you haven't arrived at that just yet, I'm gonna ask you to go refer yourself to previous casts and get caught up to where we are today. Well, I'm just trying to get you to understand modes of being. And so let me expound. Let me go further than that. I mean, we could use terms like registration. I think so. No, because I don't want to talk about conveyance because that's actually a word you want to use. But we're talking about words you don't want to use.
License.
Oh, license is super important because what's the terminology you always? I dare you to expand your mind and go out right now. I mean, and it's funny. Here's the thing. I'm going to tell you to do a thing, and I want you to really gauge your feelings about what it is that happens should you involve yourself in this activity. And now watch this. I want you to walk up to an agent of the state who might label themselves to be something of a police officer, and I want you to engage that police officer in conversation. Just like, go about your day, find one in his commission of whatever activity he does for the state, and just kind of sequester their attention. Get their attention and ask them about, public safety. I've done this before. Do it of your own volition. And if you feel some sort of apprehension about encountering one of these people, understand you do so because you feel as though, hey, if I involve myself in conversation with this person, they're going to firstly they're going to find me suspicious just for interacting with them within the commissions of what it is they do throughout their day. Which, I mean, an agent of the state, a public servant, why would they? What grounds do they have to feel suspicious about a man, asking them about their duties and capacities? They should welcome it. They won't. So feel that energy, and I want you to really check yourself as you inventory. Feel that energy about what it is to discuss, their day with them, and then I want you to ask, just ask them random facets of their job. Ask them, yeah, do you feel like this is conducive to public safety? Several things they do, like unmarked cars, blacking things out, tucking behind bushes in order to conduct traffic enforcement. Ask them about things they conduct themselves in and understand why the energy is such and why they generally get standoffish about what it means to perform their duties. Have you ever done anything of that nature? I'm sure you have.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I mean, we're engaging the people.
Asking them about their duties harkens them to ask you for identification. They have to know who they're talking to. And the reason they have to know what they're talking to is because they are always under investigation for what they do. So the last thing they want to do is have some investigation or someone trying to get information out of them that will cost them their job. Let's put it that way, cost them their job. Now, if you are trying to figure out why they would think that talking to people, the people they work for, would cost them their job, you have to understand what their job is. If your job is, for lack of a better term, criminal in nature, everything you do and say causes you worry to be spoken out loud. So there's that. I'll even go. So he has that. Plain Sight asked you to try that out. I'm going to ask you if you have, if everyone to take it out of your time and actually get to know what it is that you are doing on an everyday basis. Call the departments of licensing.
Oh yeah, bring it back. Licensing.
Call the Department of Licensing. Ask them, do they give out driver's licenses? They will tell you vehemently, no, we do not do that. But they are the Department of Licensing, so any kind of licensing would have to go through them. So where is this licensing coming from if it is not coming from the Department of Licensing? If the Department of Licensing is not giving out licenses, who is the one giving out the licenses? Because you said a license is for something that you could not do without the government assistance.
It's putting you in a special capacity. That's outside of ordinary activity.
They don't do licensing for automobiles. They do licenses for everything else. But they don't do licensing for automobiles simply because an automobile does not require licensing to use.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, you made me want to say the thing, and this is why I'm sorry. So I feel kind of roundabout now. I mentioned the whole idea of discussing with agents of the state what it is their duties and operations are. And a thing, if you ever get into any discussion with these people, let's just say the idea of driving comes up. What's about to come out of their mouth? I mean, if you don't already know, you haven't engaged yourself with enough of these people or this group. What they're going to say is 4 words: driving is a privilege. That's what they're going to say to you if you discuss conducting yourself behind the wheel of an automobile, and they presume that you're behind the wheel of a vehicle. What they're going to continue to discuss with you is the idea that driving is a privilege, because now we're talking about the idea of being licensed in order to do something. And now you're talking about being licensed, if you want to just take it there directly, you're talking about being licensed to move in commerce, specifically. Which, of course, they won't directly tell you is the nature of your discussion. But they're going to hem you up over it the entire time you discuss the matter with them.
Fishing license, hunting license.
That's the special capacity, being in commerce. That's it, and that's all.
It actually says that too. For licensing requires in commerce.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Hold me for like 1 minute. I gotta get the charger cord. This laptop is going down. Yeah, go for it.
Licensing requires commerce. There's no commerce. There's no licensing, because that is a special way of that the government has jurisdiction over. It, like we've said many a cast over, falls under the whole Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution for the United States of America. That's licensing. If the government is not involved, then there's no reason for licensing. If I'm just going outside to get some fish because I want to cook it and fry it, I don't need a license for that. Was here long before there was government. Hunting was here long before there was government. Moving about was here long before there was government.
Man, thank you.
Government didn't tell you could walk. They didn't tell you you can ride a bicycle. Matter of fact, even if you want to call it driving, they didn't have laws for that in the first place. People were doing that all over the place. You know why? Because that was not something special that was allowed for business. People had automobiles long before there was any kind of vehicle administration.
Yeah, we're talking about
because they had automobiles. Now, when they started using them for business, well, that's when you got the vehicle administration, because we have to control the business aspect of it. We have to make sure that everybody's getting compensated. You can't be going across state lines with property and not pay taxes and duties on it. So you get into these licensing that had no basis in anything, because it couldn't possibly exist because the government didn't exist.
And it all brings itself back around to the UCC, Uniform Commercial Code, the universal idea of what it is to be acting in commerce. It
literally says it, Uniform Commercial Code. That's literally what it says, Uniform Commercial Code. It doesn't say Uniform Law Code, because that would be a contradiction in terms to law and code. Yeah. It doesn't say universal law. Well, that would be that universal law would be common law. So that's a whole different issue. So that's what they don't talk about that.
/ natural law.
Natural, exactly. / natural law. So what are you really doing? So who, like I said, who is your master?
So understand these figureheads, when they discuss the idea of, and I'm gonna say it again because I guarantee you, if the conversation comes up, like, I feel so weird because as I considered this over the course of my years of running into this conversation with these kinds of people, it's the idea of them discussing driving is a privilege. But if you know Hale versus Hinkle, your privileges are actually just as protected as your rights. And you'll understand that they're actually being taken from you in a disingenuous manner.
Go for it. Teacher.
Yeah, the Google. Yeah.
Constitution of Maryland Declaration of Rights, Article 24. No rights or privileges can be taken without a trial by jury.
And the law literally continues to frame you properly for the language that's being used. If you are to ever just investigate what the law is in and of itself.
Imagine someone telling you that no rights or privileges can be taken without a trial by jury. And then you go to traffic court and they said, we're taking away your privileges to drive.
And imagine one man up there. Who
and
tells
someone
us to?
and tells you that, and you're just like, okay,
Okay.
what was the point of you learning anything? What literally was the purpose of trying to comprehend words because you give the words power? If you're just going to go ahead and be like, nah, I'm not going to listen.
You know what's so sad about it, honestly? When I really like inventory what it is you just said there, is you have to say to yourself, man, what was the point of all these people drafting all this? And at this point, we're not talking about legislation, you dummies. We're not talking about drafting legislation. We're talking about drafting law items where all these things are granted to you long antecedent to the fact that you're in a courtroom today.
Long antecedent to government. Before
Well,
there was government.
you know what I'm doing it for, yeah. Thematically, yes, long antecedent, and I love that term. It means before the other thing was a thing. Why did they do so? And the government acknowledges that law is antecedent to their means of existence.
Their policy making. Great side note, great book. It's called The Courts and Judicial Policy Making. It doesn't say law making. It's the court. Great book. It's a textbook. The Courts and Judicial Policy Making. In it, they use the term law a lot. You know why? Because most people do not understand what they just read on the cover.
Yeah, and it frames everything that goes on in the book from then forth.
Yeah, it tells you what's going to happen in this book. The Courts and Judicial Policy Making.
And
you know what you're going to say?
It subverts
the law
the term
said.
law.
And people are going to come away with saying the law said.
What a waste of your time. Just put the book back down. Get out the library.
Statute literally says is given the force of law. So it means it doesn't have any force, but we're going to give it the force. It's like Star Trek. Excuse me, Star Trek.
Since we're talking about language to avoid, we're talking about language to avoid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to throw statute in there because I would avoid all use of statutes unless you ever understood law in and of itself in its most pure form.
A statute is a policy given the force of law.
Given the force of law, because now we're talking about color of law.
That's anything done by government.
Right, which is also labeled as more succinctly state action. Which we all know, state action, color of law, force of law, all these things we were talking about actually in and of themselves subvert law. If you don't understand how to call upon the law to bring into question the actions being committed by the state.
But,
by nature, these things seek controversy.
Yes, they seek controversy. Their job is to seek controversy because you know why? Because slavery is still legal. Not lawful. Legal.
Illegal.
Two different terms. But it is legal. Slavery is legal as long as you have committed a crime.
Mm-hmm.
And you know who decides and you know who decides in the statute or a commercial code, commercial law, what is a crime? Someone else. Because under actual law, the law of man, a crime is an injury to a party. And you have to have an injured party, an injured body, whether it be property or whether it be the body itself, which is corpus delicti. That's the definition of a body. It's corpus delicti. Injured body. But anyway, but in the statute, when you use statute, I can make up whatever I want to say is a crime. Because you know why? Because you know what? Statutes change every single day.
It's policy.
It's policy. I can change the policy whenever I choose. So if today, nicotine, Newports, cigarettes are legal right now, But it has been proposed and it has been written in that Newports, well, I won't say Newports, nicotine infused or menthol infused cigarettes will now be a crime, because as a policy making, I can do that because it has to do with business. So if you are in possession of menthol cigarettes, it means you are purposely trying to sell them. So now I have made it. You're trafficking. Now you're committing a crime. So because you have these menthol cigarettes, you are now a criminal. Why? Because I just decided it. So
we just made the new policy.
Imagine how. So for some people who want to claim that everything has gotten so well, I won't even go that far. Let me just say this. How does making it a criminal act to have menthol cigarettes help you? Especially if you are a minority in quote unquote black community. You're going to be a criminal for having menthol cigarettes. Imagine that. So enjoy it while you can.
Yeah. So in the time that we, I hope that the folks listening at home are really compartmentalizing or really internalizing this information that we're sharing here about the distinction between law and legal, and just understand we're not talking about this is beyond good and evil, in the words of a certain philosopher. We're just talking about living in the world of commerce versus living in the world of natural, common man law of nature versus law of business, mercantile law versus law of existence between beings on land.
Law of the sea, law of the land.
There you go. It's really
That's the simple way.
These things are divorced from one another. But you have to understand, because their language seeks to unify the two. They seek to create joinder onto your existence into what it is that they do in commerce.
I'm gonna put it one more way to further expound on that, and how much of a disconnect there are, and how much it is exactly the opposite and contradictory and goes against and is opposed to. Statutory law definition.
I'm sorry, that phrase always makes me laugh.
Statutory law. Now, this is the definition of statutory law. I'm trying to make sure I'm gonna paraphrase a little bit, simply because I can't remember exactly every single word at this moment.
Hey, I keep that thing on me. Go ahead.
It is statutory law. Is that form of law? Mind you, it says law. That form of law, because it's commerce law, that uses statutes rather than constitutions or judicial decisions. So, mind you, he just said we are not using constitutions. So if you think your constitutional rights are being upheld in a statutory law system, well, then you just don't understand the words.
Oh, dude, you stated it word for word right there. The body of law derived from statutes rather than from constitutions or judicial decisions.
Oh, well, yeah, I haven't read it in a while, so I didn't know if I was, doing verbatim.
Hey, you know what we do here. It's all good. Yeah. I feel you.
Yeah, I memorize words. Whatever.
It's important. So no, you're doing good work.
In their definition, their determination, what they literally told you is, we are not going to use your constitution. We are not going to use the judicial decisions, which are the ones that we cite so often, which are the Supreme Court rulings or circuit court rulings, because those are judicial decisions. We're not going to use those. We are going to use the statutes, which are legislative policy, because there's no such thing as legislative law.
Congress cannot create law. They can't do it.
So we're going to use these legislative policies, call them statutory law, just like how you call a driveway or parkway or or federal reserve. All those things don't have anything to do with what they just talked about. So a driveway, you don't drive in it. You don't drive on the driveway. You don't in a parkway. You don't park on a parkway.
Park on a parkway.
You don't. Federal Reserve has nothing to do with the federal government. So we're gonna call it statutory law because people are people, and they're really not going to understand what that means. So we can use judicial policy. We're going to use judicial policy to do everything we want to do, because
worse than that, legislative policy.
Excuse me, legislative policy. We're going to use legislative policy and give it the force of law.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, when we say it's the law, you're going to agree with it because words.
Hey, let me plainly state how dirty the game is. Like I feel like I'm in the wire right now, but this is how dirty the game is. A body of politicians are subjugating you. They're relegating you to the idea of being an employee of their organization and telling you it is so. Like, what if I just slap you in the mouth right now and tell you the sky is red? I just keep slapping you in the face and keep telling you the sky is red. And you're like, no, the sky is blue. I mean, we're not going to get into the conversation about colors and the cones in your eyes and what you recognize things to be. Because we all know, honestly, if you want to take
Kunta Kinte?
It's the American success story.
Your name is now Toby. Because you're going to believe it because I told you that's what you have to believe.
You now believe, and you know what though? I'm raging against the machine. Pardon my French. I feel like we don't even curse on here. Fuck you. I won't do what you want to.
Well, because we're not supposed to, so we try to keep it.
You're right. Yeah, I'm sorry. That was my one infraction. I'm gonna slap myself on the wrist for that one. But for you to understand, for context, you capitulate to what you understand.
Fear is a great motivator.
You understand?
Fear is a great motivator. You can chop off my foot. You can chop off my hand. You can chop out my tongue. That's even better if you do. Because there's no way I can agree with whatever you're saying.
You can't even have a conversation.
Yep, I can't agree with whatever you say. Everything you do
from here on out is a violation.
So, you gonna be Toby, or you gonna be Kunta? You gonna serve God, or you gonna serve your government?
It's so simple.
What is it? Maybe. Hey,
yo, we need that clip. We need that clip. I'm hollering that Bach. It's going down. I need that clip in full force for everyone to understand what's happening.
Will you lose? This is literally the quote. Will you lose some of your rights? Maybe. Now, this was the government saying it. That's why I just made this statement, because this was the government on national TV. It was national TV conference, press conference at the time, saying, "Will you lose some of your rights? Maybe." And everybody was like, "It sounds good."
Based on the heightened fear. I mean, I hope this isn't sounding too contextually appropriate to you. You do what you will. But due to the heightened state of fear, we, the government, need to seize more of your ability to move freely about the land. I don't want this to hit too close to home. Let me continue to reiterate. We, based on the situation at hand, which is, and it always is, unprecedented. Like, I don't want to cite my man Obeezy too much, but I don't know how many times I heard him say in these, unprecedented times we've never been in before. Guess what? Any time that marches forward is a time we've never been in before. Dingus. We now need to seize new authorship over your ability to exist in this realm, in this place of being. That will always be their mission. Do you understand?
Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. But we're pretty much out of time for today.
We kind of ran a little over, man. I enjoy these healthy discussions. They're good. They're easy to get wrapped in. We could do this a 2-hour cast, but my man Bach has a schedule, so we're relegated to the realm of 1 hour for the time being. We'll do other things going forward, but if you were hanging out for this and you caught this information and it meant anything to you, we were glad to go a bit over, because if it helps you glean any further knowledge of what it is you're up against. I don't want to say involved in, unless you choose to be. That's why I caught myself. So should you choose to be involved in, yeah, we're talking about what you're involved in. Now, if you happen to be of a different level of comprehension, I say this to mean we do this so that you can have better comprehension of what you're up against. All right, there you go. I ran a bit long, even saying all that.
Who do you serve? That's my theme for today. Who do you serve? Who's your let's put it into context as it should be. Who's your master? Who's your God?
Hey, I'm sorry, I'm West Indian, so I gotta share this. There's a group from I can't even remember the island they're from right now. Sorry, it begins with a B, but there was this group named Midnight, and they had a song. The word was with God. God's word was the way. This is the hieroglyphic of the modern day, was the statement. And yeah,
Tough.
it's really, you know what I mean? Because you got to understand God. You got to understand, you need to understand willpower. There's a bunch of things you need to understand, but once you have contextual knowledge of all these matters, when I say hieroglyphic of the modern day, I mean, if you're listening into what we're discussing right now, you'll understand that your ability to protect your existence as a sovereign is with you. I mean, you are God's vessel. Do with that information what you will.
Yep. So that's our cast for today. Like we always say, we do this a labor of love. If you don't agree with anything we've said, if you have angst, or if you're trying to gain further understanding to the things that were stated during this cast, that were factually stated and were not our opinions, but actually written down on paper, pen and paper, by the government that you are dealing with, Google it. It's in plain sight. So
yeah, they're not his words. They're not my words.
Nope.
These are their words.
These are their words.
And we can always source this information in various capacities. Here's one.
Yeah, and then there's Kevlar, and there's Bouvier's, and there's a bunch of law dictionaries that all say the same thing. But
there's the U.S. Constitution if you want to start from square one.
Yeah, you can actually. You'd have to start from the Magna Carta.
Well, yeah.
If you want to start from square one, you got to start from Magna Carta. But that's a whole separate cast about
Please,
law.
we'll get into it.
Understanding that we're not there yet.
Hey, one of these days we're gonna go over to Law Merchant, and
yes.
Why. Yeah.
All right. Peace out. Peace and love.
We appreciate you. We implore you to come to us with further questions. I love it. Last week we had a listener chime in. We want more of that. We want engagement. Although we do not seek controversy, we do not duck inquiry.
Yes, because questions are not controversy.
Yeah, that's how we got here. Asking questions.
It's actually how you get rid of controversy.
Exactly.
So
it's our duty to get rid of controversy.
All right.
Alrighty.
See y'all next time.
Peace.
Peace.